Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Well, welcome everybody to our latest episode. It's spring in Seattle. Spring has sprung. Baseball is back. The cruise ships will begin sailing once again and dumping loads of people off in downtown Seattle to spend money and support businesses and then go north to Alaska. My allergies are fired up. Maybe yours are too. It's good to have spring weather in the city of Seattle. And it's good to have you with us for our latest episode of Seattle City Makers, where I'm joined by Peter Tomozawa, who is the CEO of World Cup Seattle, the entity and organization that is leading the execution and planning for hosting 6 matches here in Seattle in June of 2026. The biggest event and biggest party on the planet will descend on our city in just a little over 2 years. And Peter is leading a team of individuals to ensure it is a success on the field and off. Peter has a long and diverse and rich career in technology, finance, government affairs, and sports. Prior to taking the helm of World Cup Seattle, he was president of the Seattle Sounders and helped lead them to their 2019 MLS Cup and a CONCACAF championship shortly thereafter. Prior to his time at the Sounders, he was an executive with the committee to help bring the 2028 Olympics to LA. And prior to his tenure in sports and working to secure big events like the Olympics and working to execute big events like World Cup, he had 17 years in finance at Goldman Sachs. He and his wife Donna are residents of downtown Seattle. He got his BA from the University of Michigan and his MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. And Peter's also an avid hockey fan and played himself and is a minority owner in the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Peter and I discuss what it took to win the bid to bring World Cup to Seattle. Seattle's one of 16 host cities across North America. And we talk about what is underway as far as the planning and logistics to make sure the biggest event on the planet goes off without a hitch here. We talk about what this will mean for Seattle, the projected 1 million visitors that will come through town over the course of a month or so, the 6 matches that we will have, including 1 U.S. men's national match, and the legacy that Peter and his team hope to leave once the games, the fans, and the players are gone. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Peter Tomozawa, the CEO of World Cup Seattle. Well, thank you, Peter, for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
And I know you're just back from Miami, right? For some FIFA meetings with 15 other cities. What were you doing down there?
Miami is the headquarters for FIFA for the World Cup. They just opened up offices there. We host cities. There's 16 of us. We meet kind of every quarter, I'd say. And we were
in person. You were getting together.
In person, we get together and we talk about all things World Cup. There's a lot going on.
What did you cover that you can share from last weekend?
A lot of it has to do
right?
with sort of the planning that goes around it, what the FIFA World Cup Zurich folks are thinking about, and just it's really meant to be a collaborative, cooperative information sharing and how we're doing it. We have 16 people like myself running each of the individual host cities, and so we just sort of compare notes and talk about things and how we're going to be the greatest World Cup in the history of World Cups.
How did you feel about our preparation and how we're organized and the enthusiasm here relative to what you were hearing from some of the other cities that are
I couldn't be more
similar
proud.
issues?
Yeah, great question. I couldn't be more proud to be from this region, to be honest. Like the embracing and welcoming nature of our community has been so overwhelming, really. And it was so nice to really be from a region that is really supportive of this opportunity. I think what we're doing is slightly different than our other host cities. Our emphasis is on what we leave behind for this event coming here. This is the world's largest event of any sporting kind of event. Actually, any event of its kind. And, our focus is on what we leave 20 years beyond this World Cup coming here, very similarly to how we think about the 1962 World's Fair, and so we're going for that kind of level of impact. We're not going to build a space needle.
Not a second space needle.
Not a second space needle, but our focus will be on our community, our people, and our children.
And you've hired a chief legacy officer. Do I have that title right?
You got that right.
Yeah.
Chief Legacy Officer. We're the only city to have a Chief Legacy Officer. We were the only ones when we hired the Chief Legacy Officer. We were still the only ones to have one. So I felt that was really, really important to, if we're going to be leading with legacy, to have someone lead us in legacy. So it's really exciting.
How do you define what it is you all would like to leave? Or are you sort of in that process as we're, still 2 years out from?
Well, we've done some great work on this. It is 2 years out, but it's very short 2 years, I would say.
This will be the fastest moving 2 years of your life.
Yes, it will very, very much certainly be that. The way we're defining it is we have built 6 pillars around that, and that's around human rights, accessibility, environmental sustainability, and what I call the 3 C's, which are our children, our culture, and our community. And so we're building out programs in each one of those spaces. Very specific ones, and happy to take you through those if you'd like. But those are the main 6 things that we're focused on.
And you've been at this a little over a year, is that right? After leaving the Sounders as their president of business operations?
Yeah, I had 4 wonderful seasons. Yeah. We had 1 MLS Cup. We had a runner-up MLS Cup. We had finalists for Leagues Cup. And then finally culminating in our final season as Champions League champions for the first time in history. An American team has become a Champions League champion. So 4 really wonderful years. 2 years were kind of grueling, I will say, in between with having to manage through COVID. That was very, very challenging, and I'm glad that's behind us now. But yeah, I've been at this World Cup thing actually a lot longer. So I've been officially part of the World Cup since February of last year, but I was also officially part of the bid committee, the group of people that got the host city rights for the World Cup. I started that in 2019.
And what drew you to this role? Why'd you leave the Sounders gig to come do this?
Well, I mean, it's just it's an opportunity of a lifetime. It's a once in a time opportunity for the region. I am 62. World Cup won't come around for another 30 plus years again.
Back to the U.S.
Back to the U.S. most likely. They'll have to rotate through a whole bunch of different continents. So probably optimistically it might be back here in 30 years. It's only the second time in its history. The World Cup started in 1930. That's actually been to the United States. So this is the chance of a lifetime. And, this is a culmination of a lot of the work that I've done in my whole life. What we're trying to do is leave Washington better for having the World Cup. It's a massive opportunity. We like to say that the World Cup's coming in 2026, but what we're really doing is bringing Washington to the world. And I've emphasized Washington, although it's coming to Seattle, because we have such a great state, and to be able to really show the world what we have. And this is going to be an audience measured in billions and billions of people. It's mind-boggling, really. It's almost, when you go around the state and you go around the city talking to people about the scale and magnitude of what's about to happen and what's about to hit us, it's unfathomable. It really makes the Super Bowl look small, which is hard to imagine,
And the way this is being organized and carried out across 16 cities is somewhat unique as well. I mean, we've never seen a World Cup quite like this, right? I mean, what kind of challenges does that present for FIFA and all of you that are, down in Miami last week trying to sort through everything? I mean, this has got to be, and we've got a bigger tournament than we've ever had before. More teams, more matches.
Yeah, this is the largest tournament ever. It's not even hype. It's just math. We had previous World Cups had 32 teams. The current one that's set up has 48. So we're going up 16 teams, so 50% bigger. Yeah. We previously had 64 matches in a World Cup. Because of the size of this tournament, it's grown to 104 matches.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's just massive. To answer your question about what's really cool and what's also unique and also what's hard is that we have 16 cities, and all are sort of different about what they want to get out of it, I suppose. In many ways, we all want to do a great job and show our cities off in the best light and our states off in the best light. But the reality is we're all going about it slightly differently, as it should be, because everybody has different priorities. And and that's part of the unique flavor. But one thing about the World Cup that people should understand: it's not just a soccer tournament. It's not. That's just part of it. The real part of the World Cup is that it's a unification event. It brings people together like you've never seen before. It's phenomenal. I'm just so excited to share that experience and with our state. The Washingtonians, they're going to see this, and it's going to be amazing. There's no other event that I can think of that really brings people from all around the world, all walks of life, all different points of view, different political views, together in celebration and in support of their countries. And it was just so amazing. I was in Qatar in December of 2022, and what a privilege that was to be there. It was just the whole world united there. It was it was a cacophony of people just there united, and that's that is the real human spirit. I will say, and there's no time now better than the present to have this unification event, and we're really privileged to have it here in Seattle.
Are there lessons you bring back from your 2022 experience there, or is it such a different environment and approach? I mean, it was one place. I think they built 12 stadiums or something.
Eight stadiums they built, yeah.
So it's a whole different deal than what we're doing here in North America. But are there some things that you drew from being on the ground there and having that experience that you're going to apply?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
We actually studied a lot about how their fan festival was put together. It was open down at their waterfront, and they celebrated a remake of their waterfront. Interestingly enough, we're going to be opening up the new waterfront park in 2025. But that whole area is going to get revived with the Elliott Bay connector, and that those two things alone are just massive. And so we took great interest and took very, very detailed notes on the way they activated that space down there and what they did with all that. And so I can't wait to share that with you as we develop those. And they are currently in development.
And we are going to have this great platform of a new waterfront park for a ton of fan experiences for folks that got tickets, but also folks that don't, right? And
that's a great point.
Yeah.
And, I'm really excited to work with you, in particular, Downtown Seattle Association and others. Visit Seattle and a number of other different agencies all around. But, it's not just about celebrating our waterfront and what's new here. It's also about celebrating what we have here. We're going to have, I don't know, upwards of 1 million visitors during the tournament. Most of them are going to be not from around here, and they're going to have a chance to experience all the good that we have here, and so we're really going to look forward to working with your group and others in terms of how we direct people around our town, around our state. We are intending to bring this event to the people, so you don't have to have a ticket and feel like you have to have a ticket to come enjoy the World Cup. So we're going to be in 9 different cities across the state, 10 if you include Seattle, with watch parties and viewing opportunities and community engagement activations, really. And so bringing the event to the people is a really exciting thought. And so we're doing things that I think that will leave an indelible imprint in the young and the old and the present.
It feels like you're taking a little bit of your experience, certainly from as president of the Sounders, but also your time on the bid committee and for the Olympics in LA and the 2028 Olympics. Do you feel like this role is sort of a marriage of your time in the MLS and your work in LA to land the Olympics?
Yeah,
there?
That's great. I didn't mention that, but thank you for talking about this. Yeah, I did. I learned the business of sports by working on the LA Olympics. In 2016, I joined the Olympic bid committee down in Los Angeles, and learned a ton about the business of sports, the whole shooting wax, really, ticketing, stadium operations, merchandising, all those things were just brand new to me. And I spent 2.5 years studying it, learning it, presenting it. I wasn't the only one. I was a very, very small cog of a very big team. But ultimately, we pulled it off. We ended up getting the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028, third time in history that'll be in LA. But the first time in history, the Paralympic Games will be in LA. And so that's really it was an honor and a privilege to work on that. And so I really got my hands dirty, if you will, learning about the business of sports through the Olympics. And then when I got to the Sounders, it was a phenomenal experience. And one of the things that resonates true in both those things is that sports is really about our community. Everybody thinks it's all about wins and losses and performance on the field or on the pitch. It's not. What's important to our communities is about what these sports teams represent to their communities. And that's why the most successful ones sort of take on the identity of the place. If you think about the Seahawks, you think about the Sounders, our motif at Sounders is that we never give up. We will battle to the death, battle to the end. We may not always come out on top, but one thing you'll be rest assured is you'll see a team out there that embodies that never give up spirit. And I think our city really, really takes to shine for that. The 12th man with the Seahawks is just symbolic of like a community coming together. And so all those experiences sort of roll up. And it was really a fun experience to go out and bid for and win. And I will tell you, I think it was harder actually to win the World Cup host city rights than it was to win an Olympic bid. And why I say that is there were 44 cities bidding for the host city rights in
across North America,
just across the U.S.
Across the U.S.
44 cities, and they were all having great, amazing pitches. They're all beautiful. They're all the home of soccer, and it was really a hard-fought competition amongst the different cities. And I will say our city came out. And when the FIFA folks were here, that was so important to see our community behind this activity and behind the bid. That was the difference maker, to be honest, right then and there. Is sort of like when they saw the Champions League final, FIFA came here for the Champions League final.
That's right. And saw Lumen just jam-packed. And
that was like, every other city had to say, we can sell out.
Right.
And we're saying
they got to feel it.
You got to see it.
Yeah.
You not only got to feel it, you got to see it, and you got to experience it. And so it was such a positive proof point about our community coming out to cheer on the Champions League, and that was an amazing experience. But it's a culmination. I would agree with you on that comment. It feels like a culmination of everything that I've worked for in the world of sport and the world of business. But we'll see how we do.
How did you make the transition from business to sports? You were with Goldman for almost 20 years or so.
Correct. Yeah.
And how did you end up going from Goldman to sports?
Well, there was a step in between, I'll say. So Goldman Sachs gave me, for lack of a better word, a lottery ticket. When I started at the firm, I was 31, living paycheck to paycheck, broke, 2 small kids under the age of 3. And then 18 years later, I was like, wow, I can actually not have to work for a living anymore. And I'd come from a very modest background, and so I don't think I need a lot. But honestly speaking, it was the price you pay for such a lottery ticket is time. And by the time I got, 18 years later, I had 5 children. I was traveling 3 weeks a month. I couldn't figure out any other way to do that business. And it just got to be too much. And then so we were fortunate. We ended up moving to Hawaii. We built a house there, and the kids went to high school in Hawaii. And so that interim step was Hawaii. I spent 5 years there. But it's a long, long story, but I'll try to make it quick. I ended up working for the state of Hawaii Department of Education as a commissioner of charter schools. And we had to it was really fun. And we had to really create a new charter school contract, 10,000 kids, $65 million budget, 32 schools that we managed. It was really an amazing privilege, actually, to be working in this. And then I ended up, through that, getting introduced to the mayor of Honolulu, a guy named Kirk Caldwell. And he ended up hiring me to come work in the mayor's office. So I spent 2 years doing that, and I worked on public-private partnerships for parks. I ended up working on the light rail system. It's a $5 billion, or now it's $8 billion dollar rail system. And then because of my background in finance, I helped them figure some stuff out there with regards to financing. I got a real insight and look into seeing how city governments are run. And I will tell you this, for anybody, it is a great privilege and experience to work for a city. There's no other job you can have where it really matters to so many people. I mean, if you can imagine not having your trash picked up, or if your toilets don't flush, right? That's what city people do. They make sure all these things work.
Right?
Day to day. They make sure you're safe, you're secure, and they make it inviting for to have. And they have people like you, John, who work on the Downtown Seattle Association, make the city as inviting as possible. And it's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful opportunity. But yeah, so that was my interim step, was more city government and state government work. And then I went, as life would have it, my youngest of 5 children. He pretty good soccer player. He tried out for 2 teams. He tried out for the Portland Timbers Academy and the Seattle Sounders Academy. He didn't make Portland, but he did make Seattle.
You made the right one.
He didn't really have much choice.
They picked him, right?
And so when he came home from his tryouts, and I didn't really understand what was happening, because I thought, well, if he makes that means he has to go to Seattle for a couple week camp or something like that every. And they're like, so what does this mean, son? He says, well, moving to Seattle. And then my wife looked at us and my son, and she says, you're not moving to Seattle, to my son. And he's like, starts with the arguments as to why.
How old was he?
15.
15.
And she says to he and I, yes, he's not moving to Seattle. We are moving to Seattle. We're going to support him. We were facing premature empty nesting. And so we moved to Seattle without knowing a single soul in the city, no family, friends, or anybody.
Yeah.
Really. We have some friends actually from school in the Midwest, but a small number of friends, and with no roots for sure. And
so he had a connection to the Sounders before you.
Yeah, he always says, "Hey, Dad, you're welcome."
He put a good word in for you there with the ownership group, with Adrian and everybody.
Yeah.
My dad's looking for a gig.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's so it's been a wonderful experience. It was really interesting to see the Sounders from that perspective. Of somebody who's the dad of an academy kid, and how well they took care of their people. It says a lot about an organization that really takes care of its people, and really thinks community first. That's how I got to know about the Sounders, is sort of like how they connected with their community. Their story is wonderful. And the success is a byproduct of the fundamental culture. And people often wonder, why are some sports teams perennially good and why are some sports teams perennially bad? It all comes down to one word: culture. It is central and germane to an existing team that they have a baseline that they work for. And the Sounders and the Seahawks and the Kraken are doing it the right way. The Mariners, whether you win or lose, the fans are with them because the fans believe they're part of the community.
Mm-hmm. Is your son still playing?
No longer. The dream has to die for us at some point in time, but he did parlay his experience at the Sounders to scholarship at Stanford. And he's graduated now, and he's actually got a job, and he's off my payroll.
There you go. So the announcement on the matches that we're receiving was made, last month? Early February?
Yep.
Were you surprised with the number and the fact that we're going to have a U.S. men's national game here in Seattle?
I was surprised about the U.S. men's national game because we had no information. The only thing we knew that, and this is honest truth, is we were get somewhere between 5 and 7 games. So, of course, I was pitching for 7. So my dream scenario, if you told me before that morning, was get 4 group matches, 2 knockout, round of 32, round of 16, and a quarterfinal. That would give us 7. That was my dream scenario. this exceeded my dreams, because if you gave me the choice prior to the morning, you get a 7-pack with a quarterfinal, or you get a 6-pack with the U.S. men's national team, I would take the 6-pack all day long, because we are assured to have 100% certainty to have the U.S. men's national team play here, right? And it just blew me away. And I found out in Miami last week that it was a large part due to the work that we had done, showing off how great our city is going to be. The backstory to all this is, Los Angeles was decided to be the first match, and every national team plays your first match where the host city is going to be selected for that, right? And so that they told Greg Berhalter, the coach of the U.S. men's national team, I did a press conference with him. This is where I found out, that your first match is going to be in L.A. Where would you like to go, after that? You know what he said? He said Seattle. And they're like, why Seattle? And he goes, because I think that city gives us our best chance to win. And game 2 in our group stage is the most pivotal, most important one. The place is loud. He goes, I would be so proud to march to the match with all the Seattleites. And so it was awesome, because like he was like our soundbite
cool.
man. Yeah, it was so cool. But you know what? It's authentic. It's not even contrived. We didn't have to do anything about that. It was just part of what people think of in Seattle. And we're loud and we're proud. And that's what
I think Paul Allen had the thought of the U.S. men's playing in Lumen because of that great design of that roof way back when it was being designed, is to be a loud place.
Well, we owe Paul Allen a great
indeed
debt of gratitude for everything he's done for the city. There's so many players that we owe a debt of gratitude for that foresight.
Yeah, well, and certainly soccer was in the vision of Lumen, CenturyLink
one
originally.
One of the first acts I did as CEO of the World Cup committee was go visit Governor Locke. And I went over, he was president of Bellevue College. I went over to his offices there, and he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm saying, I'm coming here to pay my respect to you and my hat tip to you for the foresight you had for Referendum 48. Referendum 48 said that the stadium would be ready for a World Cup or an Olympic Games. That was in 1997.
Yeah.
Talk about planning and thought and forefront. And the other person I went to go thank was Fred Mendoza. He's the current chair of the PSA, the Public Stadium Authority. Fred has been instrumental in the development and promotion of soccer in our state from the last 30 years. And, he was part of the group of people that helped write the referendum. And so without those two, we would have a very difficult time with the World Cup, I would say. So we owe them a great.
Yeah, indeed.
Those three, I guess.
Indeed. So we've got 6 matches. Who was the first person to call you after those were announced to ask you how they get tickets? Do you remember?
I think it was you.
Not yet.
No, it wasn't.
Does your phone ring every day to get emails? How do we get tickets?
I get stopped on the street. I get stopped in my elevator in my building. Tickets are going to be very difficult to hard to come by. I don't control the tickets.
FIFA controls all for all 16
tickets.
cities, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
so enter the lottery. Is that your advice?
I would say, what's the harm?
Yeah.
Enter the lottery. We will have opportunities to win tickets, enter to win stuff all along the way. We will also try to create some affordability seats for people that are in underserved populations and areas. And so that'll be a priority to us. But that's why we're so focused, because we know it's only 60,000. I mean, it sounds like a lot. It's only going to be 60,000 plus people per match. But we know the demand is going to be far greater than that. And so we're going to bring the experience to the people. We will, like I said, be across the state with watch opportunities, viewing opportunities. We'll have activations well in advance of the tournament. And hopefully the stuff that we're putting together programmatically has lasting impact beyond.
And the impact's going to start well before the first match, right? I mean, we're going to feel the energy from World Cup before kickoff with a team that comes here to train, right? And
yes.
We've got some facilities that are pretty solid candidates for a team to be camped out for several weeks training before their matches start, whether their match is here or not, right?
That's correct. A great point. And so there are 48 teams coming here. So we need 48 locations for them to train. And they come here 2 to 3 weeks prior to the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have proposed from the Seattle area, the Long Acres facility, the Sounders Long Acres facility, brand new, is beautiful, by the way. It's fantastic. If you haven't been there, I'll take you there. It is just state of the art. It's going to be the most sought after location. So what will happen is in the fall of 2025, once all the teams have finished qualifying, so they know who the 48 teams are, they will then enter. This is the game behind the game. There's a portal that they'll enter, and they'll put in each team will be sectioned off into their group stage areas, and those group stage areas will be mostly geographic, right? So Vancouver and ourselves will be paired. Likely San Francisco, LA, and to some degree will be paired, and so these group stage matches, the city, the country that is in our area, in our group stage area, will select a home training site. Okay? Why that's really important is that if you get a country that has well-heeled, that can pay the money to be considering, the best facility, which will be the Seattle Sounders Long Acres facility, they not only bring their team, they bring their fans. So you can imagine, I don't know, Argentina, France, somebody of that kind of brand ilk that have crazy, rabid fans. Brazil, oh my gosh, right? We won't get Mexico because Mexico will start down in Mexico. So sorry for the Mexican fans that they won't be here for that part of the stage. But you get one of those kind of teams, Spain, Germany, or something like that, Japan. Can you imagine? They decide to select our city and to train. They will be here 2 to 3 weeks before the tournament and bringing all their fans. This place will be buzzing 2 weeks or 3 weeks before. Now, we've also proposed Gonzaga University in Spokane as another potential home-based training site. And there's going to be a selection list of around 70 or so for the 48 nations. So FIFA have been going around scouting locations and sites in and around that. And so we've also proposed Portland. We don't know which ones are going to make the final list. We know the Seattle will, because somebody's going to want to be here for sure.
Because of the quality of
the
that
quality
new
of the
facility.
stadium,
Yeah,
and also
Renton.
I think almost every host city will have somebody that wants to be in that host city. I think it really depends on the type of facility that the team wants, and every team is a bit quirky, by the way. We've heard stories, but anyways, I'll save that for. I don't want to get in trouble, but there's different coaches have different mentalities as to sort of how nice of a place they want, or how Spartan of a place they want.
Yeah.
Some coaches are very much into we're here for business, not here for pleasure. This is, but those teams will
keep the guys focused.
Yes. But like you said, even before that, this past summer we did with you, the Downtown Seattle Association. We did a Westlake activation where we did the Women's World Cup. That was phenomenally successful. I mean, we thought we were going to get. I thought I would have measured success at like 800 people, but we got 1,200 plus. Mayor Harrell was out. The place felt great.
Yeah.
It was kudos to you and your team for doing such a phenomenal job of putting it together. Honestly, it was fantastic. We're talking about doing it again for the Olympics, maybe Gold Cup this summer. And we're going to have discussions with you and your group shortly once we figure out what we want to do.
Yeah.
And what is possible. So this time you'll have more than a month to put it together, I promise. But you did it in an amazing fashion.
It was great just to see so many people come out. And it was,
it felt great.
Beautiful night, and to cheer on the U.S. women. And we didn't like the results so much, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. But, the world's sort of caught up on that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Makes it more exciting.
And then what about practice facilities for teams that will be here playing matches? How are you
Yes.
planning and thinking about where all these teams are going to practice?
So we have a plan that we're working with several universities locally on putting a practice facility. So then what you're referring to is when a team comes in, they're not based out of here and as their home.
They're not
base.
training at Long Acres.
They're not training
Yeah.
at Long Acres. So the teams will come in match day minus 1 or 2. They'll need a place to train and play. We have a plan put in place together with a couple of different universities in the area on upgrading their fields as a legacy, and also, making it sure that there's a lot of work that has to happen with these facilities because they're not just practice facilities, they're media events. So there's a media event center that needs to be put in place. There is a minimum level of locker rooms and such and all those kind of things. And we've got a team of people working on making sure that happens.
What keeps you up at night as you think about all the work ahead for over the next 2+ years?
Well,
It seems like a lot of time, but I imagine on other days it doesn't seem like a lot of time at all.
Well, in order to make maximum impact in the community, we do need to raise quite a bit of funds. And the more we can raise, the more we can do. And so we've got some really fun, ambitious programs. I would say, if I can can I talk about that now?
Yeah, please.
Under children, for example, we have a commitment with the Ray Foundation, Seattle Sounders Ray Foundation, to build 26 fields by 26.
Across the state. Right?
Across the state. Yeah. One of the things that we're doing, and we're in the process now of working out how that looks and all those kind of things. But those are real things that are happening, we're working on a program right now to reinvigorate the Pacific Science Center, STEM education for children, using soccer as the impetus to get kids interested in sciences. That's one of the things that we're working on. That's really fun project, thinking about that and tying that into Washington Youth Soccer. 800,000 kids play Washington Youth Soccer. And so we're going to tie those things together for that. Under community, we've got economic development playbooks being put together. We want to make sure that minority-owned businesses and small businesses don't get overlooked for this big event coming here. And how do they make their maximum impact and don't get overlooked by the World Cup? And so we're going to put together an economic development playbook. We're putting together, because we know we can only go to 9 cities, so I don't want the other 270 odd cities in the state to be wigged out. But we're going to put a plan together to help them, the cities that don't get selected for these watch opportunities, how they might be able to put their own together, right? And so we'll have a step-by-step guide on how to do that. How do you get your license to display? What do you want to put in there? So I think those are the things that we've learned from watching Major League Baseball All-Star, the experiences. So it's accumulation of stuff, but that's going to be really exciting. Also on the community front, this is one I really love, is we have a plan to connect our city in a circular loop from the stadium to the waterfront to the Seattle Center, through downtown, back through up the CID, back down to the stadium. That's sort of the minimum starting loop. Think of like the Freedom Trail in Boston. Think of like the High Line in New York City, where you have walking trails throughout your city. We're going to create that with you and others in the city to do that. And that's going to be phenomenal. And we're going to connect the city through culture. That's the idea. Make it an interesting place to walk and visit and see different things all along the way. That I'm really excited about is a real leave behind legacy opportunity for the city. We're working with the FIFA app people. This is part of you asked me what I did last week. We had a meeting with their app development people. We are reimagining wayfinding. We want to have a gamified way to visit our state. So you get rewarded with points or tokens or emblems or whatever to collect, and by going to different places, right? So if you go to Spokane, for example, or if you go to the trailhead at Rattlesnake Ledge, you pick up points. And once you fill up your kind of like your bingo card of points, you enter to win tickets or enter to win tickets to the World Cup or tickets for swag or things like that. So we're going to gamify wayfinding, and that's really exciting. We also want to plug into things that are being done, like your kiosk project. That's a very exciting one, and we want to figure out how to do that. And then going to sort of like the human rights, we're working with our tech companies across our city. There's something called Tech Against Trafficking, where we're thinking about how that would work for us. And then, of course, on the environmental side of things, one of the things that we're very focused is on water quality. And rain recapture. There's a stadium project that's going to be about recycling, reusing the rain off the roof, for example. It's a considerable amount, as you can imagine. And so that's a super exciting one. And the final one thing is, it's sort of accessibility. We're thinking about ways to connect our communities of people with impairments, not just making the event like accessible in the way like, you can come. It's more like, how can we leave a positive impact and impression on people with impairments? And one of the things I'm most proud about so far and the things that we have done is last year, June 20th of last year, we announced the very first, and this is a historic, very first time in FIFA history that indigenous peoples have become a host city sponsor of the FIFA World Cup. Unbelievable. And it's the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. They stepped up. They provide the leadership. Have to give them hat tip to them for wanting to represent not just their own people, but all indigenous peoples. And they wanted to tell their story and their voice to an audience that measures in billions. And that's going to be super exciting as we roll out programs. I just was on the phone with their leadership yesterday, and we're talking about like what things will be rolling out shortly. So stay tuned for that. But phenomenal opportunity there.
That's terrific. And that came, as I understand it, when we were talking, I think last fall, from your relationship you had with them through the Sounders. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we've had a very strong 4-year relationship. I was president of Sounders for 4 years with the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. They've been a huge supporter of soccer throughout that time. They became our jersey patch sponsor. That was also historic first. They like to do things first. And they were a historic first jersey patch sponsor of the MLS. And what was unique about that is it wasn't just about their casino brand, the Emerald Queen Casino, but it was also their tribal patch. That was the very first time a tribal patch got on. And I saw with great interest that, and I give a lot of credit to the Muckleshoot Indian tribe for doing the Kraken jersey one. They created history there, first NHL jersey partner like that. So it's a tremendous thing. It shows great respect, and we're really excited about that.
So you said audience earlier. Give us some of the numbers on the number of eyeballs watching an average match, the final, to give folks who maybe don't have an appreciation for the size and scale of this event across the world and what it means.
Yes. So, okay. I'm going to start with the number you should remember, which is 2 billion, and I'll tell you how we get there.
2 billion.
2 billion for Seattle. This is just for Seattle. And this is how I get there. Group stage matches, 250 million each.
Watching. Yeah.
250 million total viewers. And that is based off of 200 million from the Qatar World Cup. So I don't think it's a stretch to imagine that we'll get a 20% bump from that, particularly because we have one of the U.S. men's national team in that group of 4. The group of 32 ought to generate 400 million audience. The group of 16 knockout stage ought to generate 600 million. So that's 600 each match.
Yeah.
To give you a perspective, Super Bowl gets 175 million. So we're going to have 6 events that are dwarf that of the Super Bowl. And just sort of the numbers from Qatar. 5 billion unique viewers globally. That's 55% of the world. 5 billion. That was in Qatar. and that was with 32 nations. We're going to have 48
Right.
nations. We're going to have so many more games. We're going to have so many more viewership. It's just mind-boggling. The minimum least watched match in the World Cup in Qatar was 200 million audience. That was the least interesting matchup, was 200 million. So that's bigger than the Super Bowl by itself. This is how big this is across the world. But what's more impressive, if you think of the numbers, is in 2022, and this is just a fact, look it up, the second most watched sporting event in the United States, second most in the United States, was the Men's World Cup final, Qatar. And that was played at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning.
That's right. On the West Coast.
On the West Coast.
Yeah.
That is hardly prime time, right? And it was the second most watched. So we have a lot of people watching March Madness. I love it. NHL hockey, Stanley Cup finals, NBA finals, Major League Baseball, all were eclipsed by the World Cup final. You know, it's funny because we were having meetings with FIFA last week on their marketing side, and you know they're really convinced that they have to really promote this match. And I'm like, you're kidding. Why do you think you need to promote the match? Because they have a very European viewpoint of American audiences. I go, the World Cup is a big deal. Everyone knows it. You don't need to promote it. It's happening, you know. And they're like, well, we're not so sure. You know, we're afraid that, you know, we won't be able to sell the tickets. I go, you know what? If you're so afraid to sell tickets, just give them to me. I'll take them in every single city, you know, and we will sell them.
Do you think the world sort of underappreciates the U.S.'s fever for soccer?
Yes.
And how it's
a European view. It's a very
Yeah,
European viewpoint of like, you guys don't know what offsides is, and you don't know. You call it a PK, you know. And then instead
you think part of that's just because of the dominance of the NFL and their success, and we're just thought of first as a
football nation.
Yeah,
the other football
the other
nation.
football.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you know, I think at the end though, we've come a long way. The MLS has come a long way. We are now getting players like Messi to come play. And that changed the whole game for the MLS, to be honest. Let's be, you know, the Messi effect, you know, is massive.
I find myself watching, games that don't involve the Sounders, but just because he's playing.
Yeah, you just want to see. And even like sometimes when he doesn't show up, you still end up watching it.
Yeah.
So like, you know, his impact has been just phenomenal for the growth of our sport. And what's really interesting is that some of these young players are now saying, hey, we should come to the U.S. to make our careers, you know? And so we've got that really exciting kid, Pedro de la Vega from the Sound, you know, from Argentina. Or he's from Brazil, right? Anyway, I think he's from Brazil, and he's just an exciting young player to come, and that's really refreshing to see. There's a bunch of them across the league.
Are you surprised how successful the MLS has been, given how fast they've expanded? I mean, what are we at, 28?
29
teams now?
Maybe 30.
And just massive growth in the last decade or so.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's a sport that you know, the thing that has always kind of tied or kept the MLS down has been the quality of play. And I would say the quality of play has really reached global heights. We're getting really great American players. We're getting good European players to want to play here. Are we caught up to them yet? I would honestly say no. But, you know, we're getting closer. The gap is closing. The quality of play is more exciting. The presentation is great. Kudos to Apple TV. Wow. I mean, you know, talk about a company that knows what they're doing. They came in, they scooped up the rights for that, for the whole league. And, you know, I love the quality of their broadcast.
Yeah.
And so the things that have been happening and now we're seeing that kind of the cascading effect on NWSL has been amazing, right? Like now the prices paid for these associations, for these clubs is dramatically rising. And the quality of play there is also super high. We're super excited about the Reign playing in Seattle.
Great to have them back.
Yeah, so good to have them back in the stadium. And they're starting to pull the crowds. They were worried that they couldn't get over 10,000 when they routinely do that now. The Storm have been great. You know, women's sports has been on a rise all across, and we're ready to support that.
So we've talked a lot about soccer. You also have a minority interest in the Vegas Golden Knights.
I do.
How did that come? The Vegas Golden Knights that really took it to the Kraken the other night with 7 seconds to go to tie it up and beat him in
16
overtime.
16 seconds.
16, yeah.
Yeah, I was at the game.
Ouch.
Yeah.
But how did that come to be? How did you get connected to hockey and investment in the team there?
I'm a lifelong hockey player. Maybe the audience doesn't know, but I'm a Japanese American kid, and grew up in Michigan, and was picked on a lot for being the only Asian kid in the neighborhood and in the school. And hockey spoke to me. They gave you a stick, and they were told that we were told that you're allowed to hit people with it. It was perfect for an angry young child. And if you could learn how to skate well, that was sort of the equalizer to my small size. And so I fell in love with the game at a very early age. Started playing when I was about 7, 8 years old. Have been lifelong hockey fan. That's the backdrop. And when I got to LA Olympics committee, I got introduced to a bunch of people, different people in sports. And there was this friend of a friend who said, "Hey, you should go listen to this pitch." And this was 2016. And I go, "What's the pitch?" And he goes like, "This guy wants to bring hockey to the desert." I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know about that." And he goes, "Yeah, I go, "Where?" And he goes, "Las Vegas." I'm like, "Can you do that?" And they're like, because the gambling rules and all that. And he's like, "Apparently, so we should go listen to this guy's pitch." And so I went over, visited with them, and listened to the pitch. And long story short, I asked, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Well, it's the first opportunity to bring the first professional men's sports team to Las Vegas, which is a great market, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Well, 2 million people, it's kind of small state, desert. Do they like hockey? All that stuff." And he goes, but I go, "More importantly, why are you doing this?" And he said, "You know what?" He gave me a great answer. He goes, "Have you ever been to Las Vegas in the early wee hours in the morning?" I go, "Well, I try not to stay up that late," but he goes, "Well, let me tell you, it's kind of grim. It's sad in a lot of ways." And so he goes, "But the people of this city, it's actually a great city." He goes, "And I think Las Vegas is in need of a soul, and a sports team provides soul. It's the food that feeds communities. It gives them civic pride and something to really rally around." I love that. I love that concept. That's really formed my whole thinking about sports teams in general. And it was really fitting because it was before I got involved with the Sounders, and I was just getting my feet wet on learning about the business of sports. And I go home to my wife. I tell her, I go, "I think I want to do this investment." And she's like, "Why? You're not that kind of ego guy that with sports team ownership." I go, "I know, but this is like the only chance I'll ever get to own part of a sports team." And anyways, long story short, we did it. I was actually in the room when he said to the ownership, the group of us, that the game plan, the business plan, is to break even for the first 5 years. And we will break even, and we will figure out how to do that without making the playoffs. And for those, if you don't know,
didn't guarantee the Stanley Cup in the second.
No.
year.
So here,
Yeah.
no. So he said, "We're going to figure out how to break even by not making and we're going to do this in the business plan of we won't rely on playoff games."
So don't assume you're going to make the playoffs.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't exactly.
Yeah.
And he goes, "However, on the team side, our plan is to make the playoffs in 3 years and win the Stanley Cup in 6." I was actually in the room when he said that. And we made the play. He was wrong.
Yeah.
We made the playoffs in the first year, and we won the Stanley Cup in
Yeah,
the 6th.
pretty great
So he was
story.
not right.
and since then, Las Vegas has become quite the sports town.
Well, the other thing that they've done more to, yes, it is. It's amazing. The Raiders are there now. The Aces are phenomenal success story.
You get a
It's becoming-
baseball team here soon.
Yeah,
probably.
the A's are going to move there. The whole thing has been like on this rocket ship thing. But the reality was that Vegas did need a soul, and it did need a community, and it has responded so well to all those things. The one thing he did was he did two things that were brilliant, and any sports ownership should really look at this, is he created a culture, right? Much similar to like Adrian Hanauer has built this true culture around the Sounders. This guy hired the best hockey mind he could find. This guy named George McPhee, and George McPhee went to work to build a group of people that wasn't just based on skill and numbers. The numbers are important, like the stats, but it was the character that was really important. And the second thing he did was we need to redefine entertainment. And that's what he did. So he went and hired the head of Cirque du Soleil. This is why the Vegas event is different when you go there. So go to a Vegas Golden Knights game.
For the in-game fan experience?
Yes.
To produce.
Most of us go out and hire a game presentation person.
Yeah.
And we retread that game presentation person. That person has worked for the NBA, the MLB, the NFL.
Shoot the T-shirts into the crowd. And
This guy was Cirque du Soleil. And that's why you have to go. My brother just went there for the first time last week. And I said, my brother Ken, I said, don't be late to the game. You need to be there half hour before. He goes, why? And he was like, don't try to be one of those people that come show up late. You're going to miss one of the best parts of the game, which is the opening.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if you're going to miss part of the game, fine, leave early. Don't miss the front part of the game.
I gotta get down to Vegas for a hockey game.
You have to get down to Vegas. But the Kraken have done an amazing job.
They really have.
They really have. The town loves the Kraken. They should love the Kraken. They play the right way. They play fast. I just can't say enough of they're my second team now. The only time I don't cheer for them is when Vegas comes to town. But I would say the following, which is I think we're really, really lucky to have the people that we have running the Kraken here because they're just phenomenal people. They understand the culture, they understand the community, and they're going to do great things for our community.
Yeah, they've done it the right way. That's for sure.
They really have.
We were fortunate to have Todd Leiweke on a few episodes ago and spent a good time with him. So
well, Todd deserves to be before me.
you both are terrific, and I think Seattle is super fortunate to have the sports mind, business minds, but also community minded leaders we do across our franchises.
Well, thank you.
And to have folks doing it the right way and working together, and we're lucky. And I don't think get the appreciation we should, or the recognition we should, I should say, is of being such a great sports town.
It is a great sports town. It's a great sports town. It's a great city.
Yeah.
And a day like today, it's a phenomenal city. Wow, look at that weather.
The blue sky always helps. So, Peter, we have two standard questions that we conclude with. One, what was your first job? Before Goldman. We went back to Goldman, but you were somewhere before Goldman.
I've been working a long time. I'll not count my paper route as my first job, but my first true hustled job was when I was 14 years old, and you had to be 16. I looked like I was 12, but I lied about my age, and I worked at the University of Michigan football stadium, the big house. And at the time, and no offense to people who do this today, but at the time, the lowest form of vendor in the pecking order of vendors was the person selling Coca-Colas. Heavy, sticky, wet trays of Coca-Cola.
You're carrying them around. You're not behind the concession.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
This is like
up and down the...
Yeah, the people behind concessions, that's the cushy job. But and now they're only behind concessions. But at that day, I was the guy, the kid that they would run up and down the 88 rows, which I know very well, of the stadium, up and down. And that was my very first job. And the first, I would never forget. This is kind of where I started thinking about the powers of observation, although I didn't think of it that way. But I was looking around, and all these college kids in the student section were carrying these Boda bags. You know what a Boda bag is? It's like a little satchel that you can squeeze, and the fluid comes out of the bag.
Okay.
It's something that you carry around.
Oh yeah.
For like hunting and stuff. But they repurposed them for liquor.
They didn't have Coca-Cola in those.
They had like straight up rum or whatever, and they needed to cut their rum.
Oh, there you go. They need
but I didn't know that. I was 14, right? So I just went up there and all of a sudden started selling Coca-Colas like crazy, right? Into the student section because they all needed. They were going to pass out if they didn't water down their rum somehow. So, but I didn't know any of that. So, anyways, I'd sell out, and what you were instructed to do is go down to the rack room, and you're supposed to say, "Rack me up." right? And so I ran down there and rack me up. And they're like, boy, where are you selling those Cokes? I said, never you mind where I sell these Cokes, just rack me up. So that's my father claims that was my Wall Street training.
Very good. You found the right market in the big house.
I found the right market.
Plus 1,000 you were selling to the right 200.
Yeah. So I took the lowest form job into a higher level paying thing for me.
Have you remained a Michigan Wolverines football fan?
I'm ashamed. I'm not ashamed, but I am proud to say yes. But I am soured a little bit on the college game, I would say. But I shouldn't say that on the podcast, but I will.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where college football
I'm really saddened by where the direction is and all this focus on NIL. Look, players, they, and I saw this with my son, right? I mean, that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And they should get paid. I get it. But you know what? This whole recruiting on NIL, and it just feels so bad. Like, here's this University of Washington is a great example. Built this wonderful program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe they took advantage of getting certain players and such through the portals and all that kind of the new rules, but they have a wonderful system and program. And they were decimated after the leaving of their coach to Alabama, right? I mean, they went down from 100 players to 44.
Mm-hmm. You saw it at A&M too when Jimbo Fisher leaves, and
then he gets anyways, it's just sort of.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was excited that it was Michigan versus Washington. I would have been happy with either one. So it was nice, like watching two children that you have and you don't have a favorite. But at the end of the day, Michigan prevailed on that day.
They earned it. Good football team.
Yeah, it was a good football team. It was a great football game. And the seasons for both teams were fantastic. A lot of controversy around the Michigan program this year in particular. But yeah, I've, as you can hear, I still remain a fan, but I'm kind of just a fan now. Before I was a rabid fan, and now I'm just sort of a fan. So I'm really, really worried about the state of the college sport. With these mega conferences, I don't know what that's going to mean. And I know no one cares what I think, but at the end, it's, we're fans and we paid tickets, and I'm just sort of, I've gone from watching every single game to just watching a handful. Yeah,
it feels like we may end up with a couple of dominant conferences and a handful of really good teams.
And all based on money.
Yeah, and then everybody else.
Yeah, and so then what are we watching?
Yeah.
Right? Then are you watching the semi-pro level sport? This is the top level games are very, very competitive and a lot of fun to watch, right? But at the end, you just have mega conferences and, minor league sport. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm really looking forward to March Madness. I think that will be a lot of fun. That really sort of brings us back to our college experience, I think more than anything. And I'm hoping that the college experience doesn't get ruined by money.
Yeah. So our final question, Peter, what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle? How do you spend your perfect Saturday?
A perfect Saturday in Seattle would be having a nice cup of coffee, walk down to the waterfront. I live near Pikes on First Avenue. I take a right all the way down to Expedia and walk all the way back. That's 5 miles. My wife and I do that religiously most days. A perfect lunch would be at the Pink Door, my favorite restaurant at Pikes. I'm plugging them, aren't I? Then to go watch a Sounders game, maybe an afternoon Sounders game, grab some dinner, and then head to either a Mariners or Kraken game. That's my perfect Saturday. I love sports. I love my wife. I love good food. So that would be a perfect combination day.
Yeah, I love it. That sounds pretty good. Good walk, good food, good games.
Yes.
Well, thanks again for making time to do this. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks for what you're doing and the way you're doing it.
Thank you for what you do. I don't know how many people realize how important Downtown Seattle Association is. I know it sounds like a plug, but it's not. It's reality. A vibrant, thriving downtown with activation makes all the difference in the world. You can talk about policing and all that kind of stuff you want, but having people downtown just creates a great environment.
And our downtown is going to be ready for June of 26. It's going to
be.
We
will be. We'll be right there.
A dang good time.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Peter. We're so fortunate to have somebody like Peter with so much skill and experience and expertise at the helm of this significant effort. And it's going to be a big, big party in June of 2026. I can't wait. And we're so fortunate to be one of those 16 cities that get to welcome the world to our town here in just a little over 2 years. So thank you, Peter, for making time. Thanks for all you're doing in working with so many other organizations, elected officials, and governments in our community to make this a huge success. You've built a great team, and we look forward to what June of 2026 has in store. I want to close out with a recommendation of something you just got to check out in downtown Seattle, and I want to highlight what is Seattle's only Portuguese restaurant, I'm told, Lonely Siren. They opened late last year in the Pike Place Market in that little greenhouse that is just above Western Avenue as you walk down the stairs there through the market. Great cocktails and small bites, including a 17-layer wafer thin layers of this potato dish that they have that looks phenomenal. So check out Lonely Siren, Seattle's only Portuguese restaurant down there in the Pike Place Market. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.